Welcome to Yoga with Sara. This is my own special blend of Yin Yoga and Bowspring Yoga. I combined the stretchy, slow mindfulness of Yin with the strength-building aspect of Bowspring, creating a class series which balances strong and stretchy. This class was recorded live and has been edited for clarity, privacy, and length. Enjoy! Hey, welcome everyone. To see you all here tonight for Yin Relax and Bowspring Elements, number 6 out of 9. For folks who know me on Facebook, I did put up a little announcement saying that we were going to do a compare and contrast tonight. And so the compare and contrast will consist of SomaYoga, Bowspring, Yin, and Restorative. And how do those things, how are they alike and how are they different? How do we feel these differences in our bodies? And what is the point of each one of these? So let me talk a little bit about each one. And you can still be gathering all your props if you want to. So as a reminder, a spinal strip and a folded blanket, a block, a belt, quite a few pillows, an eye cover if you want for the end of class, bolster, and some kind of smallish pillow or a block, but so you can see I've got like a thin pillow and a block, and this is for later between knees, so that's what we need for props. And we need a lot because of all of our different styles of yoga that we're going to try out tonight. Okay, let me just talk a little bit about the different types we're going to explore. So SomaYoga is Somatics and yoga and Therapeutic Yoga all put together. It's extra good for helping to get rid of sensory motor amnesia. Bowspring lengthens and strengthens the belly. Yin is very slow. We're settling in and we're waiting. And then restorative is also very slow, but it's completely without effort. Hence, it's one of my favorite types of yoga. The props do the work of supporting us, and we allow the props and the stillness to let us find complete relaxation. And we're going to start out on the therapeutic spinal strip. If you have a short therapeutic spinal strip, and I've got them, the long one and the short one. This is the short one. If you have the short one, it's kind of thicker. Then you're going to want a folded blanket that you can put underneath your behind. If you have the longer spinal strip, that's this one, it's thinner and wider. You would lay on the wide flat, the bigger flat side, and then you wouldn't need the butt booster. And that one's nice. It's a little bit gentler in the shoulder girdle, but it's a little more tippy. Another option, if you don't have a spinal strip at home, you can take a blanket and make an accordion fold until you have kind of a, not, this is too thick of a blanket because this would be, if I kept going, this would be really high and I would just fall off. So a thinner blanket in an accordion fold, and then you would sit on one end and lay down and have your head on the other end. So those are your options for your spinal strip, and that's how we're going to start. So to get onto this, and have your belt nearby where you can grab it, okay? To get onto this, what I'll want you to do is lay it down behind you, feel for it. It's going to go about mid-back. Once we get down there, we'll find a point on our front bodies to test. And we'll also readjust our blanket that's underneath our butt. Okay, so I'm on here, but I'm not on my blanket. If that happened to you, just pull your blanket up, lift your behind, and kind of get it scooted until your whole sacrum. I've got my blanket about from my belly button down. So, and then because it's wide, I know I'm not going to fall off of this. It's quite stable here. The spinal strip, you can test placement by finding the path of your ribs and bringing the fingertips to where the ribs meet. So the breastbone below, right below the breastbone, the xiphoid process. And keeping one hand there, feel around to the back side. And the spinal strip should be about there or maybe a little bit lower. You can kind of scooch up and down a little bit and see. All right. And then go ahead and lay yourself still for a few moments. Now I can feel, I think I scooted a little funny, so I'm gonna move it down. In my body, it feels like it actually wants to be about an inch or so below that point where the ribs meet at the front of the body on the back line. So let yourself find the spot that is the most comfortable. And if you're laying on the long spinal strip or on the accordion fold blanket, you don't have as much futzing around to do to figure it out. Arms can be out by your sides or elbows bent, hands on the belly, anywhere that is comfy to start. Let the eyes gently close. Allow a breath to fill up the body and sigh it out. And take a few more of these mindful breaths. Doing this as a purposeful transition from what came before to what is happening in this moment. Letting go of your work week. Letting go of your day. Simply settling in and breathing. Let the next breath smooth out that space between the eyebrows. Let the jaw soften. Even let the ears soften. And then let us bring our mind's eye to the shoulders. In fact, let's bring our fingertips to the fronts of the shoulders as well. And I'm going to invite you to float the fronts of your shoulders toward the sky. Fingertips are there to give proprioceptive feedback. And curl the shoulders in toward the heart. Let the neck relax. This is going to cause the head to tip back a little bit. Feel how you're doing this contraction in the front line of the body. With control, slowly release. Sometimes sensory motor amnesia shows up more when you are releasing the muscles. It might show up as shakiness, or the shoulders just jump from contracted to uncontracted. So notice those things. Letting the shoulders float to do nothing. And then begin to squeeze the shoulders toward the ground and toward the spinal strip. Feel how this contracts the back line of the body and the front line opens a bit. Let's extend our arms out to the sides. Inhale, so the heart expands. Exhale and slowly soften the muscular engagement of the shoulders. Let the arms rest a little closer to the sides. If you've got a wide blanket like I do, this can feel a little bit awkward. I just pulled my blanket up so that my elbows were also resting on it. Now finding contraction and release by drawing shoulders toward ears and then down towards tail. And we'll take a spot in the middle where we do nothing. So a mindful contraction of drawing the shoulders slowly along the spinal strip toward the ears. And if you want to, you can even tuck the back of your head into the shoulders. And then soften those tops of the shoulder muscles. Let the shoulders settle back to neutral. Let the neck and the back of the head release. Once you are doing nothing, begin to draw the shoulders down your back as if you're going to tuck your shoulder blades into your back pockets. And you might even think about tucking them into the opposite back pocket. So a bit of a contraction inward toward the spine and downward toward the tail. And slowly release, noticing any shaking, quivering, or spots where the mind suddenly thinks of something else. That is also a sign of sensory motor amnesia. Making this a little trickier for our brains, float the right shoulder toward the sky, press the left shoulder toward the earth. And besides that, we have to keep our balance on the spinal strip. Let the head go where it wants. Does it want to counterbalance by turning right, or does it want to go with the twist in the upper body by turning left and even sort of rolling off of the spinal strip? You decide. And let yourself come back to neutral. I noticed my legs were working to brace me, but they weren't really working helpfully. They were more like just clenching. Notice where else in your body you might start to work unconsciously. Float your left shoulder toward the sky. You're back up to the middle by now, by the way. Sink your right shoulder to the earth. And decide, do you counterbalance by turning your head left? Or do you go with this upper body twist and let your head slowly roll off of the spinal strip to the floor? That's kind of a long way. And gently release, coming back to center. Letting go of any gripping in the jaw or the forehead or the thighs. When you come back to neutral, reach for your belt. So I just folded mine in quarters and I'm holding it in my hands. Palms face toward your feet, and you're just lightly gripping the belt and pointing the arms up at the sky. Okay. So we did those movements with a very low load because we kept our arms on the ground. Now we've just added load by adding our arms a bit in the air. Let's float our shoulders slowly up to the sky. Breathe into the back ribs, contract the front line, stretch the back line. Exhale, release to neutral, nice and slow. And now let the shoulders sink with gravity to the earth. Let the chest expand and let the back line contract. This is a little funny on the spinal strip. We'll be able to feel it differently once we get rid of the spinal strip. And release to neutral. Shrug the shoulders up to the ears. And back to neutral. And tuck them down to the back pockets. And back to neutral. Now, keeping them in neutral, we're going to skip the twisting part, but instead we're going to float the arms overhead. You could even just hold the belt with your thumbs and palms if you want, and fingertips point behind you. Let's keep our body fairly neutral, letting the movement happen in the shoulders. Not going past the ears. Let us float the arms toward upright. Taking this again, but this time we're going to let the shoulders shrug up to the ears. So kind of like a morning stretch. Hold on to your belt a little bit tighter. Start to reach with the arms toward the back wall and let the tail point down to the ground. Draw the front of the thighs toward the hip bones. Lengthen the arms. Press the back of the head into the earth. Take a breath. Exhale, release the back, let the arms float to upright. Let go of any work that you just did in that extension. And set your belt aside. Let's roll a little bit to one side. Take the spinal strip out from under, set it aside. And the same with your folded blanket under your bum. Let's also set that aside. Keeping yourself laying with knees bent. That felt good to straighten your legs for a minute though, didn't it? If you need to straighten your legs out for a minute, I needed to. Go ahead and do that and just give yourself a whole body stretch here. You might roll the legs in or out or just wiggle around a little bit to release any tension. And when you feel ready, you can bend one knee and then the other, planting the feet. Moving into an arch and flatten of SomaYoga. We just did it a little bit, but we exaggerated it more like a bowspring arch when we did that stretch. So we started with our shoulders, and let's start there again, and then we'll add on. Let's go ahead and float our shoulders toward the sky. Feel the contraction of the chest muscles. And now press the belly button to the earth, not by working with the back body or the butt, but rather by contracting the belly muscles. And even think about drawing the front hip bones and the shoulders toward each other. The tail curls between the legs. The head might tip back. So this is all engaging this front side of the body. The back is lengthening and releasing. Softly, we let go. Coming back to doing nothing, taking our time to get there, we mindfully release the contraction. Doing a muscular handoff, we now let go of doing any work in the front line of the body, and the work all happens in the back line. Let us begin to press our shoulders into the mat. Think about lifting the heart, the lower ribs, the belly button, as the tail rolls down to point at the ground and even presses into the ground. The shoulders might squeeze together a little bit in the back line, and the head might purposely press into the earth. Let go of all contraction or all work in the belly. I just noticed I was pulling my belly in. Let go of any work there. And now let go of work in the back line as well, softening the shoulders, the back, the waist, the ribs. Taking this a little bit bigger, let us flower ourselves closed and then open. This time the arms can be a little further from the body. We're going to get the arms, the legs, the body into this. Begin at the center this time. Press the belly button toward the earth. Float the shoulders and the hip points toward each other. Roll the shoulders inward, letting the palms roll to the earth. Begin to squeeze the knees together. The only thing not coming in is the head, and we'll try that on the next time. Slowly release this muscular engagement of the front line of the body. Notice what lets go. Taking it the other way, starting at the belly button, begin to float the belly button toward the sky. Roll the tail toward the earth. Lift the low ribs. Press the shoulders into the mat. You might even walk them a little bit underneath you. Roll the palms open. Let the knees roll open. Let the throat lengthen. Feel this engagement in the back line of the body. Relax the belly and slowly soften your way back to neutral. Final muscular handoff. Interlace the fingers behind the head. Elbows lay out at the sides. Belly button draws to the earth. Lower front ribs tuck in toward the belly button. The hands begin to lift the head, the shoulders and the hip bones. Try to reach for each other. The knees squeeze together. The belly keeps drawing toward the earth. The hands are holding the head, but the neck is doing a little bit of work too. And as smooth as possible, we lay ourselves back down. Letting the elbows come out wide. Let us press the head into the hands. We attempt to press the elbows to the floor. We lift the low back while the tail presses down toward our heels. Let the knees open a bit wider. Take a breath into the belly and ribs. And then soften. So folks who practice at Yoga North know this as the arch and flatten or the flowering arch and flatten. You can let your arms come out. And that last part where we pressed into our hands and we really arched through the back, that's very reminiscent of how it feels when we are working more in a bowspring practice. And that's what we're going to move toward now. I'm going to curl onto my left side so I can keep facing the camera, but you can do either side, but I'm going to cue from the left. If you have socks on like I do, you're going to want to take them off because we're going to need the grippiness of our feet on our mat in a minute. Okay. Laying on your left side, we curl our legs in. And I know I've got at least one person who's new here tonight. So something that's funny about the bowspring practice is we never, let me roll my back, we never pull our toes back like this and like point through the ball of our foot and pull our toes back. Instead, we act like we're pedaling a bicycle right here and the top of the foot pulls toward the shin. So even from a side lying position, we'll just try that first. So the toes relax and see then, can you pull your tops of feet toward your shins to slightly activate these ankles and fronts of shins. I'm totally gripping my toes. Relax your toes. Good. Okay, from here, make a horseshoe shape with your right hand. Put it on your right knee and press your knee away from you, but don't let your knee go anywhere. And that means you just got longer in your body, right? So as you pressed into your knee, actually you lengthened your body. Now compound this with your bottom arm, which for me is my left arm, I'm going to put my hand on my back of my head, press your head into your hand into your head, and reach your tail toward the wall behind you as you push your right leg into your right hand. Lift your right leg off of your left leg and get even longer in the belly. Feel how by pushing your hand into your leg, this has just activated this whole belly line here, right? So I invite you to feel that. Take a breath, get longer through the back, try to look a bit behind you, and slowly release. So that's something that's a little bit different about the Bowspring practice, is this co-contraction, belly and back together. And often we do it once and then that's it. So I will stay with that practice of once and done. Once and done. Go ahead and let your underneath arm get a little bit longer. Put your top arm out in front of you. And we're going to sit ourselves up from laying on our side by lifting our side rib cage. This is going to be weird. Let your top foot come in front of your bottom foot a little bit and start to arch up through your right side, head coming up last, coming into this side seated position. And this is a Bowspring side twist, so the hands are off to the left, I guess it is. You're sitting on your left hip. And we are now going to attempt kind of an impossible situation where, again, arch the side ribs, the right side ribs up to the sky. Let the head hang down to the left. Dome your right hand. And now try to send, you can make your feet comfortable wherever they need to be. Try to send your tail behind you. It's so impossible, right? Okay. Feet, right foot in front of left. Right hand, so both hands on the mat. We're going to come up into a side crouch. So the feet are planted, the hands are planted. You're going to lift with your right side ribs, lift your butt off the ground, send your tail further behind you. This is that side crouching cat. I think we practiced this last week. And then rotate it to crouching cat. And this is where knees are quite bent. Tail lifts up to the sky. We try to walk our way back enough that we can dome our hands. We're going to hold our weight in our legs. It's a lot of work in the legs. Let go of gripping with your toes. Good. I'm just going to turn around because we're going to go to the right, and so I want you guys to be able to see me. From your crouching cat, you're going to you can bring your hands a little bit forward, rotate your feet to the left, and try to reach your tail behind you. We're kind of in this spring-loaded position, keeping your left ribs high. Sit your butt all the way down. That was tricky, right? Keeping a dome hand with the left hand, lift the left side ribs, let the head hang to the right. Good. And then slide the right arm out, lay yourself down, curling up now on your right side. Tricky, isn't it? Okay. So we're looking forward to our side bow on this side. Let's curl our right arm up underneath our heads so that we've got our hand available to use the hand to head, which is the headrest. That's what it's called. Draw the tops of your feet toward your ankles or toward your shins so the ankles activate a little bit, but the toes are relaxed. Bring your left hand to your left knee in a horseshoe shape. Press into your leg, but let it be your body that gets long. You don't actually press your leg away. Now press your leg more firmly into your hand, activating all these deep muscles of the belly. And then go ahead and float the left leg a bit. This gives you more space to get even longer. Press your head into your hand into your head, like you're going to do a little back bend. You're going to look behind you. But because your left leg is so activated, it's really strengthening the belly at the same time. Take a breath. And relax down. Let yourself just curl up and rest for a moment. It's funny how quick it feels in Bowspring compared to Somatics, where we do that very mindful contraction, very slow. And Bowspring, there's so much going on, and yet we move fairly quickly. Lengthening your top arm out, front hand out in front of the belly. Let's try to lift our side ribs up, sliding ourselves up into the side-seated position. And then we're actually going to move into our Yin style back bend. So you might not have noticed this, but we're doing a concentration of back bends and forward bends in different styles, or forward activation, depending on if it's Bowspring, Somatics, Yin, or Restorative. So we'll see. So moving into our Yin back bend, I think I'm going to turn around because I like to have something under my ankles. We're going to move into Sphinx pose. You could have a at the front if you think you might want to rest your forehead. It's not necessary, but it's an option. To move into Sphinx, we just crawl our way out to our bellies. Now, if it feels like too much to start here on your elbows already, well, for one, you could bring your elbows wider and let more of your ribs rest on the mat. You could also come to crocodile, where your hands are stacked and your forehead is resting. I think because my roll under my feet is so big, I feel like I'm in a deeper back bend than I'm in. But pick a spot where you feel like there's work happening, but you can manage staying here and being still. Because that is what Yin is. It is staying and being still. Over time, the connective tissue can be affected by this lengthy hold versus the muscular system, which is affected by shorter bursts of energy. In your Sphinx pose, if you decide that you like this elbow position, but the head needs a bit of support, this is where you could bring your block to rest your forehead on at a variety of heights. Allow the belly to soften. Let there be a bit of a pooling pressure in the low back. Not to pain, but to just noticing and allowing. Can you keep the breath steady and slow? And you might start to notice that the shoulders might have some fatigue. In past classes, I've offered this as a restorative pose where we put a bolster under our chest, and that's certainly an option. But with our contrast and compare model tonight, I encourage you to go for really experiencing this Yin style. If at some point you would like to go deeper, the hands can splay out a bit further to the corners of the mat, or the elbows could walk in so you're more upright. But it's possible that elbows might even lift off the ground. That's a little too deep for me. Let's take another 3 to 5 breaths in whatever iteration of the pose you're enjoying for these last little bits. When you feel ready to come out of this, a couple options. You could lay yourself down, extend one arm long, and roll to your side, just like we had been laying before. Or you could walk your hands under your shoulders and ease to a tabletop, where I would encourage you not to round the spine to the sky too quickly. Take your time, however you decide to get out of this, take your time easing out of this. We will eventually meet up for a seated forward fold. Most likely it will be kindest in your body if you give yourself a cushion to sit on, a little butt booster. And I've got mine set up so it's kind of like a little ramp. It's thinnest here, a little bit thicker, and if I need to, I could fold this and give myself even more of a boost. Having your block will be very handy. Possibly you would enjoy a bolster. I'll give a couple of options for this forward fold. So first of all, we just did a big back bend. So it's possible you're going to want to do something like take some Sufi rolls or take a gentle twist, something to ease the transition. Now, traditional Yin does not always offer transitions. They just kind of go from one pose to the next. In my body, I need a little bit of a muscular reset before I move directly into another long-held pose. I'm going to give a couple of options for this forward fold. So first of all, I know that, so we're going to send our legs out long. First of all, I know that this is already a 90-degree angle. You know, if you were standing on your feet, you'd be like, hey, I'm already halfway there. Which means this isn't always a sustainable place for people to linger. You could try it for a while. You could stack up some props, right? You could, I mean, there's all kinds of options for propping yourself here. We do want to move into the pose more eventually, but if it's causing you to clench your teeth or furrow your brow, it just might be that this is not the right way for you to experience this. So another option, if you don't want to do this from upright sitting and forward folding, you could always do it from laying on your back and having your legs in the air. And you'll notice this is the same position, it's just inverted. And then for some people, it's easier to use the weight of the legs with gravity to draw the legs closer to the body. So that could be an option. Something to get you higher in the air. You'll notice I'm already on my blanket. And I want us to do the forward fold from seated forward fold, but I want to give options for folks because I don't know what's happening at home. You could stick a block under your butt as well, and then let that be a boost that'll help you get your legs going. All right, so you've picked your favorite way to forward fold, and then you settle in, letting yourself stay here. letting your breath ease you into your pose. It's okay to have a little prop under the knees as well to keep them a tiny bit soft. And the nice thing about Yin is we're not trying to do anything with keeping the tail back or anything like that. We're just waiting around for the back line to find length, however it does that. Noticing as you linger that you're finding more space. That the breath is becoming a bit easier. That the jaw is softening. Notice if you are letting go of some gripping. I'm noticing that my knees are just turning out a little bit to accommodate this bolster. You can allow that. Notice when the connective tissue says, hey, I could just go a tiny bit further. And maybe you turn your block to a lower setting, or you move from one prop to another, letting yourself fold a bit deeper. And it's okay to let the head hang. In fact, you'll notice if you tuck your chin, like, wow, that just lit up the entire back line of the body. Let's take another 10 breaths in this pose. And I give you that number so if the mind is becoming less still, the mind then can have something to focus on. Let us count the breaths from 10 down to 1. Not hurrying the breath, but not extending it either. Notice again, does the body want to settle in a bit more? Letting go of any gripping that you're doing for safety in the backs of the legs or in the butt. Let the head hang, feeling that length through the vertebra of the neck. Now it's the connective tissue we're affecting, so we want to move out of this slowly. Whenever it is that you get to your point when you are ready to roll yourself up, let the hands do some supporting. Slowly easing the body up. If you are laying on your back and doing this, then maybe the hands are supporting the legs as they come back down. Walking our way toward upright. Good. Let the hands help the knees to bend. One. And then the other. Let's set aside anything that you had under your knees. We're going to move toward a restorative back bend. So what you're going to need is your block, your belt, and let's get the belt set up in a loop before we get down to the mat. If you don't have a belt and you're going to tie a scarf around your legs or something like that, that's fine. This is going to be ready to go around our legs. You could have, let's see, we don't need a bolster right now. You could have a blanket ready to go to pull up on you. Let's give ourselves a little bit of extra cushion on our mat now also, because we're going to set ourselves up for the rest of the class, which is going to be all laying on the floor and getting cozy and relaxing. So especially if you're on hardwood like I am, it's a good idea now to add that extra cushion. If you're on carpet, well, yay for you. You could still add extra if you want. Okay, the other thing you're going to need now, pillow, something small, a pillow or two to go between the knees once we're down. So something that keeps your knees about the right width apart is something that if you find your hip points at the front of your belly, then that's kind of the distance that is the most restful versus having your knees like right together or wider apart. So this hip bone width apart, that's the size of pillow you're going to want for your legs. Now, the other thing, if you don't want to have to get up, is have your pillow pile and blanket pile ready to grab, or have it against the wall behind you. Just something that you can scoot into our extra comfy sideline shavasana. Before we lay down, you've got your looped belt. Let's put it on. It's just easier to put it on when you're upright, and loosely around your legs. You don't have to have it doing anything. It's just laying there. Be able to grab your block once you get down. Have your knee pillows. You could put your fuzzy socks back on now if you want to, if your feet are cold. We don't need anything for pushing against the mat anymore. And one final thing you might want is something to cover your eyes, so a nice soft scarf or something like that. Tuck your tail, roll your way down. Once you get here, align yourself on the mat. Even though you've got your belt, just put the buckle towards your belly so you don't roll onto it. Let your feet walk a bit further apart. Let your arms rest out. I know you've got props everywhere. That's okay. Give yourself a minute to gently roll your knees side to side. So we've done a lot in the back body. And twisting can feel kind of balancing or restorative, which is a little funny because twisting by nature is going to one side, not actually creating balance. But it's a nice counterpoint to forward folds and back bends. The next time your knees tip over to the left, turn your head to the right, turn your right palm up, turn your left palm down. Float your left shoulder more to the sky. Press your right shoulder into the earth. press the side of the head into the earth. And gently release. Bringing everything back to center. Knees tip over to the right. The head turns left. Turn the left palm up, the right palm down. The right shoulder floats more to the sky. The left shoulder presses to the earth. And the side of the head, the left side of the head, presses to the earth as well. So making a more muscularly active twist. And gently release. Good. Okay. We're going to move into a restorative bridge pose. So that's what the block is for. That's what the belt is for. What I want you to do is press into your feet, lift up your behind, slide your block on a low setting underneath your sacrum, and then set yourself down on your block. For me, it feels like the block is right to the top of my sacrum, and then it supports not quite to the tail, but I feel like the weight of my pelvis is centered on the block. If it's not centered, like if it's too low, you'll feel like your low back is banana-ing to the floor, and then you don't want that. Or if it's up here under your lumbar, you'll feel like your tail is going down to the floor, and you don't want that either. So find a spot where you feel very neutrally aligned. And yet you'll notice we are in a little back bend because we've just raised our butts. Now this is somewhat tricky. You're going to have to use your core a little bit. Have your knee pillows ready. Draw your legs in and put these pillows between your legs. Scoot your belt around the pillows and then tighten it down. So snug this up and then set your feet back on the ground. Darn, I didn't have my blanket on first. Now I have to grab it with my toes and pull my blanket on. You could do that too if you want. All right. The block can start to feel a bit firm, so sometimes with these fuzzy blankets, I'll even just lift up a little bit and tuck a little bit of blanket onto my block to give a little extra cushion. That can feel good. The belt should feel tight enough that your legs don't feel like they're going to flop in any particular direction, but not binding. The pillows should feel like they're keeping your knees, so the centers of the knees are aligned with the hip bones. And then this is where it might be nice to add in a little bit of an eye cover. If you have your belt, just place it over your eyes. Tuck it. Did I say belt? I meant scarf. Over the eyes, mine's got a hair on it, tuck it over the ears, and then tuck it in toward the back of the neck. So you're getting rid of any draftiness that might happen at the back of the neck. I'm going to tuck in the front of my neck too with my turtleneck. Get your clothes comfortable so there's no creases underneath you. And then when you're ready, lay the arms down and be still. So the props are doing everything for you. If you have an eye cover, they're even shutting the light out for you and some of the sound. This is part of the journey of going inward, closing off our senses from external light and noise. I'm noticing that I feel like my back is a tiny bit doing like that banana thing I told you about. And so I'm going to scoot my block a little closer to my lumbar to let my tail go a little more neutral or even a tiny bit into a back bend. So make it comfortable. And you'll notice as we stay if you've overdone it. So if you set your block up really high, for example, you're going to notice like, oh, this isn't restorative, this is challenging. Begin to invite the breath to slow down. Let the eyes settle in their sockets. Let the scalp soften over the skull. Let any tension around the ears and the jaw release. You might even run your tongue over your teeth, top and bottom, front and back. Over the lips. And then swallow and soften the throat. Noticing the breath. And then noticing a bit deeper into feeling the heartbeat and the pulse points in the body. Let's take another 8 to 10 breaths here. Counting the breaths and noticing the rhythm of the heartbeat in the body. Always remembering that you can come out of the pose before I call it. You just have to lift up the behind, slide the block out, and lay back down. For folks who are still enjoying this, another 5 or so breaths. When you feel complete, gently press the feet into the earth, lift up the behind, slide the block out from under and set it aside, and ever so gently lower yourself back to the earth. You could choose to keep your eye covering on or take it off. We're going to experiment with getting ourselves set up in a side-lying Shavasana, where it's possible you won't even need to get rid of your belt and pillows around your legs. I'm not sure yet. We'll just have to see. I'm going to lay on my left side because then I'll be facing you, but you can lay on whichever side you want. I'm just going to ease my way up to grab a bolster. What I'm thinking that's going to feel nice is if you put a bolster behind you, kind of like it's a couch, behind you, and then you've got a pillow for your head, and you've got a hugging pillow for your front side. And I still have my knee pillows and my belt, and I'm just gonna curl up. Get your blanket all situated. Tuck your bolster or a folded blanket in behind you. If anybody has dogs, you might relate to how a dog might come and throw itself down on your leg on the couch and just kind of wedge its back in there. That's what I want this bolster to be, like that dog that just wedged itself into your leg, so that it really can support you. Now, our low backs are not, this isn't a forward fold exactly, just like the restorative bridge was not a back bend exactly, but they're like tiny little things. They're tiny back bends and tiny forward folds, and they're just meant for us to find more and more ease in our bodies. So getting your hugging pillow all set up, getting yourself curled up. If your floor is too hard and this isn't comfortable, you can come to a traditional Shavasana anytime. The side-lying Shavasana is perfect. You don't ever have to move onto a back-lying Shavasana. So this could be your final pose, or you could stay here for a few minutes and then transition into something else. Or if you feel like your legs are too tight or with the belt, you could make those changes. Also, if you took your eye covering off, you might want to re-add it here. I'll keep mine off so that I can monitor the time. So curling up, letting your low back feel a tiny bit pressed behind you. Let your breath become easy. Sighing it out. Your underneath arm can find comfort either tucked in or extended. It could land on any additional props or pillows that you have around. Making sure your feet are tucked in and you're cozy and warm. Notice if you're gripping anywhere. So I just felt like, I'm still kind of gripped in the jaw and in the pelvic floor. And those two places often are co-contracting. So softening the jaw, softening the belly and the pelvic floor. Noticing how you feel the breath in your body slightly differently when you're laying on your side. So I can really feel the side that's pressed into the floor. The way it really doesn't have a big area to expand. Soften the neck, the shoulders. And we have a few more minutes. If you are enjoying staying on this side lying Shavasana position, then go ahead and stay. If you feel like you need to extend fully out onto your back into a traditional Shavasana, allow yourself to do that if you need to or want to. Maintaining breath awareness, maintaining ease and relaxation in your body. And starting to bring yourself back around. Allow a deeper inhale. Even start to let the fingers and toes move. Maybe stretching out the arms and the legs. Setting aside a few of your props. You might need to unbuckle yourself before you can get up. It's a little bit tricky. Eventually freeing yourself enough of your props that you can ease your way up to seated. Finding a comfortable position. Let us bring our hands together at the heart or hand over palm at the heart, either way. Thank yourself for giving time to practice yoga. Thank yourself for this dedication that you have to the health of your mind, body, and spirit. May we all be filled with peace and ease and bring this out with us into the world. Namaste. Thank you for joining me today. If you found this practice useful or enjoyable, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to this channel. Thank you. I'll see you next time on Yoga with Sara.